Evening, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of RTS, our Broken Gears spin-off podcast. I still don't remember what the actual name of the show was to be, only its actual acronym. Probably Real Talk Shit, but we still have to consult with our various archaeological teams, digital and otherwise. I don't know what they expect to find in the non-digital realms that might lead to our answer, but I mean,
something
we're
something
paying. We're paying for this,
probably
so.
probably a somebody in like Eastern Europe finding a bunch of rocks that are square that
Mm-hmm.
somebody made a wall out of and is clear evidence of Lemuria. I think that's probably where they'll find
Yeah, because
the
that's a little west for Tartaria, right? Even though
yeah,
they
yeah,
also
yeah.
think
I
that was
think
near
I think or
Chicago.
Atlantis. Yeah,
Or
yeah. No, they'll. I'm sure there will be some sort of scrying stone there that'll tell us what RTS was actually supposed to stand for.
right. And if not, we'll just post on the fraudulent archaeology Facebook group and ask them.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Um,
Is this evidence of an ancient meteor storage device in the pyramids? Is this
oh yeah, I love
a,
that. Like harvesting.
an alien pharaoh's proof of laser etching machine shops in ancient UK?
Yeah, I love they never find anything like that, right?
I know.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
it's always they're always
Always.
using like laser etching and like hyper geometry and stuff to like do really stupid shit, like make shitty walls and fucking like I
Yeah,
saw
did
one.
nobody have like was there no sci-fi ancient Egyptian vertical mill before this? Like where did all those go? like
Yeah, it's
they must
like,
have had the
oh
most.
yeah,
That's
you
the
know,
next layer. That's the next layer of the conspiracy theory. They also figured out how to run the most advanced, efficient industrial scrapyards. That this was all recycled.
you know what? That would actually be a really good like almost
Sci-fi
like
prompt, short story prompt.
shipbreaker style game
yeah.
where you're an ancient alien who just goes around laser etching rocks so they look like really shitty walls, and then there's like a whole, it's like alternating sections where that's one part, but then you can go back to your interdimensional computer and then like
Mhm.
travel into the future and post on fraudulent archaeology about how that's fake and like not
like
real. So that,
disinformation. Oh, okay.
yeah. Yep, yep. You black hat it.
It's like XCOM shit. Okay. I don't remember what it was specifically, but I had the funniest idea for not a game quite like exactly along these lines, but involving like aliens and manipulating shit. But the all I remember is that it involved that like you played one of an indeterminate number of like complete fuck up aliens, and they were sort of like tasked with running some aspect of Earth. Oh man, I don't remember. It may not come to me tonight, but I digress. What Well, we get right underway with movies here. Have you watch anything good in the past? What was it been 3 weeks already? 2 weeks? Whenever the fuck we last talked.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks, man. But I started one earlier called Nefarious, um,
Okay.
which has actually been pretty good. It's this psychologist goes to meet this dude on death row, and the guy
I
immediately
just saw a
is like,
very low res thumbnail of it, and it immediately looked like Shodan from System Shock. So
"Oh,
maybe
that's
I might
also
enjoy.
perfect."
It's just like the same color palette. The poster.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very similar vibe in the sense that like the inmate is about as has about as much humanity, but the inmate immediately is like, "Oh, yeah, just so you know, I'm a demon, and by the end of today, I'm gonna make you kill 3 people." And it's mostly like a one location movie where
sure,
they're just having this sort of interrogation almost.
sure.
Um, yeah, my wife's telling me that she is shocked that I was able to give this much detail on what I've watched already because I was asleep for part of it. But
Oh wow.
um,
So you were
that anyway,
you were in a
um,
fugue state.
yeah, I absorbed it like how people learn languages sometimes, where they just
Right.
listen to stuff
Through the 5G
while they
wave of the
sleep.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, for what I've seen, the acting's actually pretty good for two actors who I've never seen in anything before,
Sure.
and the concept's been pretty good so far.
Oh, that's good.
So other than that, though, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've watched anything super great. Um, I watched Howl earlier, which I've seen before, which is kind of like Dog Soldiers, but it's on a train. Um, it's pretty good. What about you?
That was the I could only 2010 or 2015. How like looks like you refer to the 2015 movie.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Directed by Paul Hyatt and starring Yeah, that was one. Oh, Sean Pertwee's in it. He
Yes, yeah, he
slaps
has a
something fierce as
yes.
Alfred in
I
Gotham.
think
I gotta start watching that again.
well, and it's like I said, it's got a very Dog Soldiers kind of feel to it because it takes place in the UK and it's werewolves. So
Sure.
I think that was kind of their little nod of having a cameo from Sean Pertwee in it since
Right
he
on.
was in Dog Soldiers.
Right. I actually just completely forgot about that one as well. Just looked it up. Anyway, um, remind me to get back to the UK and zombies as well. Tom and I were just having a conversation along these lines. But movies right here and right now. I mean, it's I don't know if it's more or less surprising for some folks to hear this if they have any working knowledge of the time warp that I exist in. But I just finished watching actually The Departed last night after
Mm,
some friends and I had. I think a few months. This is my usual the usual progression of chain of events. I'll see a preview of something prominent from a few years ago on a major streaming service. I think it was in this case, Hulu 2 or 3 months ago. They had it at the time. I ended up having to run it on Amazon. That's total minutia. Um, the no, this case that did happen, but in this case we somehow get to talking about crime movies at work, and my immediate colleague actually brought this one up as his like all-time favorite. I'm like, wow, that's something, because he also likes Goodfellas, The Godfather, the classics,
right.
and he's like, wow, that's an extraordinarily recent release. People forget it's Scorsese though, and for him to be his complete favorite. Like, okay, I remembered, oh yeah, I saw they had it on Hulu a little while back. I'm gonna check it out. And later, me, Tom, and another friend of ours during one of my backyard porch parties a little while ago, got to talking about it as well. And then our other friend Bill, who's actually tuned into the show a few times, over older Broken Gears episodes. I believe he's not an airsofter, but he sat into our op planning discussion, and he's got a literal pretty extensive credentials and a pretty high up job. And what did he say? I had no idea airsoft games could be this complex. And we're not making fun. Like it really is just that's an entirely reasonable thing to be in the very literal, non-condescending sense, ignorant of if you've never really seen or heard much about this hobby besides, fuck offs running around in an indoor field. So, where did we get off on that? So yeah, he brought it up when I kind of mentioned all of this at our gathering. He's like, "Yeah, man, that's some very intense acting." And I texted him last night. Intense acting were the words to use with regard to most of the main scenes, the highlights, if you will, of that one. Um, and overall, I liked it. It was really one of those movies that does what it says on the back of the box, and that's okay. I really liked the very end where the villain gets theirs, and we'll just say that.
Yes, yes,
Um,
that was very satisfying.
no serious ambiguity when it comes to anything going on, which again people forget 20 years ago was kind of okay. And I digress.
Right, right. Um, yeah, and that's actually based on a Hong Kong movie, I believe.
Oh yeah, okay. I had read that it was like a reboot or whatever you call like an
Yeah.
Americanized version of another story, which I had no idea of hitherto, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, and um I enjoyed Ray Winstone in that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's always a pretty good actor, but like the cranberry juice scene,
Oh
um,
yeah.
where he's like, he's like, look, that's not exactly somebody you can hit, but it's also not exactly somebody you can't hit. So we find ourselves in a situation where I need you to chill the fuck out. Now, what are you drinking? Cranberry juice. What are you on your fucking period? You know, the exact same thing that he had
Oh, I thought he
fucking.
said something else that I won't even repeat, but that is what he said.
Yeah, yeah, fucking. You know, he said the exact same thing the other guy had just said that Leonardo DiCaprio had smashed a fucking glass over his head for. It's
Oh
funny.
man.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah,
It's worth watching.
absolutely.
Some people kind of I think over elevate it on the same vein as like Joker or well, what do you call it? It's Fight Club or
Oh
those
no.
movies that are good, but also sometimes it's like, dude, it's good, but it's like not that good.
Right, right. Pump the brakes. Um, yeah, I haven't watched a whole lot else lately. Well, I started up with Hill Street Blues again after me and Tom were talking about, and I texted him he wants to do a loadout as Hunter, which is going to be hysterical if he actually does. Naturally, a couple folks on I think Teespring or somewhere else make patches, so
Oh,
there's that.
perfect.
Yeah. For both the department itself and the they're no room in the budget, but instead of a SWAT team, we have this. I think it's what is it, the emergency action team that he heads up,
Oh yeah.
and no one
Well,
respects them.
yeah, the old like the pre I would say like 1990s SWAT
Yeah,
is always
yeah,
very funny, especially when it's like uh, depicted in movies because it just looks ridiculous a lot of times. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Honestly, I haven't been watching a hell of a lot of movies or TV lately. Um,
same.
I've just been so busy with other stuff that
Mm-hmm.
I, it hasn't. I kind of go through phases where I'm like, yeah, I want to watch a lot of movies or I want to read a lot or whatever, and I'm just not there right now.
So you are one to focus on one particular recreational activity for a prolonged
Yeah,
period.
that's
I
I don't know
hop
why.
around too much. It's getting to be an issue. Um, but yeah, what
Yeah, I kind of go through waves of I want to do this, or I just it's not even necessarily conscious. It's just I kind of get into a mode where I mostly want to do X, Y, or Z, and
yeah,
um, it just kind of happens that way. But that's
absolutely.
that's when I'm not uh, just randomly scrolling through wikis on the minutia of Mad Max or something like that.
Right, right. Which is obviously also an equally valid pursuit and use of time. I mean, it could be worse. We could be watching. Could be watching football, right? So
Yeah, well,
I
I
never
mean, yeah,
dare we get
it's
into that.
like it's like I've said repeatedly to anybody who makes fun of some random hobby. I'm always like, yeah, well, every hobby looks stupid to someone who doesn't do it, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, and then you do have some that are definitely on another level, but within our corner of the space, and also others. Um, I will never understand. Pretending to coach a football team with your drunk friends.
Yes.
In the slightest. I mean, we have just like there's no like
Well,
you could make
the
like a
best
TV drama about this. You could have like an RPG about this, but I don't.
there's
Why?
actually a really good comedy series about a fantasy football league called The League.
Oh yeah, yeah. My coworkers like it.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean it's the best description of it I ever saw was D&D for jocks, which is true. I mean that's
Well,
basically
that's
what it
actually
is.
let's get right into a not a serious topic per se. Like this might become a ruffle some feathers or anything like that. But that was I set in on a relatively interesting um, conversation on a Facebook comment chain a while ago that I was really just expecting to roll in and cause the usual ruckus that I do. But it was actually particularly in regards to like among younger people, what demographics of people are interested in what different types of recreational activity now. They were basically a couple nerds were moderately upset. Maybe upset is even too strong a word. Frustrated, we'll say that basically everybody and their brother is playing with relative regularity. I'll just say video games with a little bit more going on than the Call of Duty of the year,
Hmm.
and that stigma around anything like that kind of having gone away fairly recently. Maybe it's been a
Yeah,
few years now, but it's like okay,
yeah,
some nerds like all right, well I took shit since sixth grade. Call them 18, 19, 20 years old. That's not particularly important. Like I took shit since sixth grade for doing this stuff, and now it's fashionable among the jocks. Like fucking,
yeah, yeah. Or
and I get it.
everything um, Stranger Things is super popular,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I remember my one buddy was like, "Yeah, you know what? When we did that back in the late '80s and early '90s, we were fucking dorks, and everybody thought we were stupid. Now it's fucking cool. Fuck
Oh
you."
right, because the main characters all play like D&D or D and
Yeah, they
D
all play
standard, right?
D&D,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
D&D, and it's like, kiss my ass.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I can kind of understand that, man,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, dude, fuck you. Like you guys made fun of me all throughout high school for this, and but now that you think it's cool, it's okay. Like,
Right.
no, that's not how it works. But
Yeah, I mean it's kind of an interesting issue to discuss because like okay, you fall on one side or the other. It's truly the answer remains. It's truly kind of a whatever situation. I mean, I hope and I've seen nothing to indicate that people are being like seriously bullied for being one persuasion or another or anything like the conversation tonight doesn't really encompass the more any more serious issue than we've or level of the issue than we've already discussed. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of an interesting perspective I hadn't heard from a whole lot, and those kinds of perspectives interest me the most, if that makes the most sense. Because like, yeah, I mean, I guess you already said like this is something that uh,
it's
well,
an
it's
interesting philosophical discussion in
mm-hmm,
terms of, you know, what makes things okay,
right, right,
and what the difference between um, one person thinking something's cool and the acceptability of that, and or the
mm-hmm,
perception of coolness based on who is determining it to be cool.
right.
I mean, ultimately, whatever. I'm at the point where I just like what I like, and I don't get super worried about it. But um,
100%. Still there, boss?
I'm still
Okay,
here.
cool. I just our region was set from automatic to U.S. East in the chat. So
Gotcha.
brief interruption. Continue.
Oh no, I was just saying it's definitely one of those rabbit holes you can go down in
Yeah,
terms of like how how deeply do you want to consider this to be um, a topic of discussion, but
right.
it's certainly interesting of to think like, okay, yeah, well, I mean, really, what who gets to police what, and who sort of what level of tolerance should you give to people who were previously intolerant
Yes.
of this particular hobby or interest?
Right. Yeah, because at the same time, it's not really something on a severity level where reparations of any meaningful
Yeah, yeah,
caliber into the
exactly.
conversation. But like, yes, I get why some people are just like, what the fuck, especially in the context of the shit that there is to put up with as a younger person in this fucking timeline. But I don't even want to get into that tonight. Um, where were we just before that? I was about to say something that I think was a little bit more than
We were just talking about
what we
how
were discussing.
D&D for jocks as fantasy
Oh yes, yes,
football,
yes. No,
and
I was just it wasn't related to that. It was just more what I wanted to discuss next, which we can get to. But yeah, once again, I guess that was pretty much all I had to say in terms of it being a little more of an interesting conversation than the side A, side B bullshit of most other larger issues, which again, we'll basically leave at that. No, I don't know how what bridged the connection in my mess of a brain tonight, but I was just thinking about another sort of fun topic we can deal with a lighter touch here, and that is the I don't want to go too much into it in case this is ever actually found by certain authorities. Um, Within my own life, not that I'm going to say anything that might become a legal issue for anyone present, is maybe just something I'm curious if you have any particular perspective on, or also find as much of a laugh to be had about it as I do. Is Isn't it something with regard? Because well, I'll just start with the context. So honestly, since the last year or two of my old job, so at least 3, maybe like 4 years, I have like half jokingly looked around for something part time, just to a little more. At the time, my business wasn't taking off, as much as it seems to be implying it might now, and that was fine. Things are fine now too. But like, okay, I was always like, okay, it would be cool to maybe every other Saturday find something to do. Maybe a few hours a Sunday too. I used to work every fucking weekend in college. Like it's not like it'd be a problem now to bring in like
right,
$100, whatever. And I with another colleague in one of the other offices, we ended up discussing this, and they asked us, myself and my other coworkers, so do you guys have like second jobs or anything with with how things are right now and all that? And I told her basically everything I just said, and every single time I look around and I get completely discouraged because unless you want to run a fiver scheme, um, which again I guess there's some money to be made, but basically everything I'd like to think I have a few reasonably easily marketed skills online, and there's already 800 people doing fucking everything. But
right.
so I mean, you might be able. That's a niche that you might be able to apply yourself and break into. Best of luck to anyone endeavoring to do so or thinking about it. Certainly a pretty low barrier to entry, depending on what you're doing. I haven't heard really anything particularly serious about their fees, etc. I mean, I think we're good for another year as far as like tax thresholds and stuff. So might be a few bucks to be made doing that full send. Um, Obviously, I even if I in my 14 years of having a car or so now, it's either been an questionably reliable shitbox or a lease. So things like DoorDash fall off the table pretty quick. Um, I should run those numbers again. Like even if it was practical, I wouldn't. How do you say want to fucking deal with it? Because let's just say
Yeah,
there's no small amount of the clientele are even if you can stay out of infamous zip codes in our lovely Western New York here, like Niagara Falls, or equivalent neighborhoods in your locale. I mean, who's to say that whoever ordered their shit isn't fucked up on God knows what and is going to take 25 minutes to come to the door.
right.
So there's that's. I mean, again, I know there's some people who definitely bring in a few bucks. My colleague was doing it for a while and told me about this one. I think TikTok or other content creator he watches that does it. She has, and this is like kind of game respecting games over here. She has Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, and I think there's a fourth one, maybe more focused towards like like driving for restaurants. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe even if it was just those three, she has them all going at once, and in a similar radius set in a particularly high traffic area on like a busy night, and she just farms work.
Hey.
um, So yeah, outside of those two things, me and Tom actually were talking about this in person Friday night. It's just so for all kinds of reasons. It's just so fucking weird out there as far as how many of these companies are crying for all of this. I mean, it's some would argue it's not quite 2021 anymore, but I think it's not a controversy to say there's still a lot of places at lower with more entry level work that are looking for help. But I mean, if you already have any kind of 9 to 5 or other serious obligations, there's just nobody out there. At least on paper, according to the Indeed job postings, I've made a few inquiries over the past year or so, and this has been my experience as well. But like I don't have enough evidence to make quite that bold a claim. Nobody out there, except for fucking carcinogenic food and retail jobs, are, as I said, able to accommodate any sort of part-time arrangement, at least on the books. And you know, if you can find something off the books, you're probably at a involved with a family or a good friend's business. At which point, none of this is your problem.
Right. Yeah, you're already
Uh,
set at that point.
and it's just been so frustrating and so weird. Just as far as like, okay, I mean, I guess all these companies really do have the luxury of just deciding, hey, I guess all this work is just gonna not get done, or passed off to X other employees that are gonna start getting pissed and quit too, until we can find somebody for a full time, to make a full time offer. I mean, and as me and Tom were talking about this Friday, I would figure that, as I said, you would be able to find at least a few opportunities along these lines, because obviously having another full-time job myself, I would not be in the market for any kind of benefits, but I'm learning more and more that that is not exactly the least subsidized or overall biggest expense on an employer's part, just based on how many different weird situations there are where you can get it but you can't, but minutia. But Tom said he actually at his place was privy to some conversations about bringing on some guys for some other projects from like their suppliers, some part-time help through like those companies. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
a whole I guess it's this whole tax related rigmarole, which is sort of the main wall preventing a lot of this stuff from being a little bit more prevalent. I mean, I forgot exactly what he told me, but it can't there's not really a whole lot else it could have been rather, besides that, if I understand it correctly, they're for what a part-time employee, an employer is like disproportionately taxed on on the income brought in or paid out to, or both, of a part-time employee versus like the sort of per hour sort of production utility or production potential of a full-timer. And yeah, again, it's just so fucking weird and stupid. I know that's not exactly the most fringe take, and I try to have at least somewhat non-pedestrian takes when we discuss an issue that isn't what movie we checked out this week. But like, yeah, I guess it's just
I
weird. That's really
I
what I'm.
think the tax issue is probably because the whatever governing authority is trying to prevent companies from just hiring exclusively um, part-time workers so they don't have to offer benefits.
Yeah.
Um, so it's probably a double-edged sword of, well, it's harder to get part-time workers, but at the same time, it's preventing the people who are already there as full-timers from getting screwed and, being pushed to 32 hours a week and just bringing somebody else in and
Right. Right.
paying nobody benefits for anything.
I hadn't thought about that quite as much because I remember that was even in our area quite a big deal 10, 12 years ago. But well beyond our area as well. I used to follow a guy who would just tell all kinds of wacky stories about his time as like a middle manager of a blockbuster in the late 2000s. And
Mm,
you said they were on the long list of companies, but back around then they were. I vividly remember one story where uh, I think he was talking overtime more than benefits. He was probably, or he might have been talking about benefits though. But it's like, yeah, he would schedule. They had this platoon of people that all worked like 21 hours.
yeah.
So,
Yep.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just weird. Still kind of, and that explains it to a point. But it's still weird that things have, in a lot of ways, swung another direction. Unless not a lot of these companies had sort of part-time opportunities in the first place, and they very well may not have. Uh,
Well, I think,
so yeah,
and this might be a incorrect or a biased take, but
Oh
I
yeah, I don't know
think
anything. I full disclosure, I don't fucking know anything about the issue either. Again, really just speaking from
I
what
you
little
know
experience, looking at a few job postings. I mean, not
I
once
think a
have I
lot
ever.
of jobs that used to be considered part-time
Hmm.
or entry level
Hmm.
have been, like fast food is a perfect example. Like when our parents were growing up, that was like a summer job for
Yeah.
teenagers.
And
And now
well,
there's people,
I think I'm gonna agree with what you're about to say, but to clarify my point earlier, those were one of the only couple sectors where like you still could find any kind of work like this. That's not to say there aren't folks pulling 40-something-hour weeks in that business. You absolutely two things simultaneously able to be true at once here. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry. You can just finish
no,
your
that's
point.
fine. I was just gonna say, food service is one of those examples though
Yeah.
where it that was not designed to be a full-time job really for anybody, but maybe the
The
owner or the
GM.
guy
Yeah.
running it or whatever, and that's just not the case anymore. And I think that's, to a certain degree, the result of the death of non well, without saying this in a pejorative manner,
Hmm.
quote unquote non-skilled work or blue collar work,
Yeah.
um, where you don't need a college degree to do it.
Hmm.
It's manufacturing is theoretically one of those jobs that
Hmm.
you can walk in off the street with a high school degree, and if you have half a brain, um, you can sort of get trained as you go and
Absolutely.
move up without a getting a college degree necessarily,
one Hundred
or
percent.
you know and I think that type of work is kind of disappeared, or not necessarily disappeared, but it's been um, sort of degraded to the point where people kind of are expected to get a college degree and then do something service related because that's what we've been told the economy is. Um, I think every machine shop in the country has openings right now and would happily absorb somebody um, who was willing to run a machine and didn't crash it every 5 minutes.
Right. Actually,
Um,
literally, the one across town, I think, just put their signs up again, and they have them out with relative regularity. And I bet when they
yeah,
don't, you could cruise up to front desk and
yeah.
express interest in an opportunity properly, and probably get a decent offer. Um,
Which, I mean, that's a lot of that stuff is self-inflicted, where it's just like these shops are either run by people who don't treat their employees very well,
mhm.
or you're working a swing shift, which is rough, um, especially if you're not in your early 20s,
Yeah,
or pre-30, I should say. Um,
I was reminded
and
that my actually not long ago, my dad did that in his at the time early 50s, and something else was on my mind at the time. Like, wow, if sign me up for the supervisor job at the Sunoco if that is
Yep,
option two,
yep,
even for
yeah,
life changing money. Okay, guess I'm driving
yeah,
a shitty old Civic for a while, and
yeah.
and if and if I have to, you live in a $700 apartment wherever the fuck you find those anymore.
I say
Whole
which
one
which totally
episode.
still exist.
With yeah,
Um,
we gotta live with three friends at 35, right?
right. Well, and that's another good point though too, is I I think it's hard to kind of work. You A lot of that work has been taken up by people who are working at full time because they literally cannot afford not to work at full time, um, because of the price of
Mm-hmm.
groceries or rent or whatever you want to point to. Um, and so there's just not as much need for part-time work for a variety of reasons. Um, and I'm sure there's people, certainly in most cases, are probably gonna prefer a full-time worker, all the other things being equal, just because it's easier to schedule, and it's
Yeah,
it's they're
that's
gonna
I think a
learn
bigger
quicker.
playing a bigger role
Yeah,
than I perhaps gave it credit for initially.
yeah. It's but I think a lot of it just is, there's really not there's not a lot of part-time work out there, because I don't think there's a lot of businesses that can really
That kind of
necessarily.
subscribe to not that like this sounds narcissistic out of context. I'm not trying to sound like some fucking business mogul here, but as you said, there's not a lot of businesses that perhaps necessarily subscribe to like my idea of like, okay, well, I guess this work has to get done. Do we want to bring in three guys to each work 4 hours to fill out a 12-hour shift, or do we want to bring in pull one guy over from from department B to help out the other guy who's already working the 8-hour shift.
Yeah,
It's just again, I would still think there would be a little bit more of an
I
or
think there's also
a few more opportunities than I'm seeing right now. But I'm not pretending that I've looked on any more than one job site or outside of a
I
couple particular sectors or reached out to a couple connections actually in some local businesses that I
I
may
think
not have
to
myself. So
some
I'm not
degree.
going to sit here and boo hoo, oh I can't find anything for a few extra bucks except
Yeah,
delivering fucking Hortons or delivering Burger King. Hortons is a local-ish coffee shop. Not everyone might get that. Delivering Burger King or working at Burger King. Like I'm not trying to isn't completely write off the situation here, but it's
no, I think part of it too is that, so quote unquote gig work or part-time work, or whatever, has kind of an image problem now as well, just because stuff like DoorDash and Uber, those companies have gotten in trouble for being so predatory, um, towards their quote unquote employees,
100%.
that I think that anybody who's considering a part-time job might say, is this really going to be worth my time, both mentally, physically, and
Logistically,
monetarily?
yeah. If you got to go 5 zip codes for a $5 delivery, this is not like
Yeah, or is the amount of money I'm going to make, even if I am truly going to make money on this, going to be worth the mental exhaustion that
yeah,
occurs from doing those extra hours beyond my normal day-to-day job?
right, right.
Um,
Yeah,
and I
it's
don't
obviously
necessarily.
counterproductive if you're making $70 in a few day span, and you gotta go spend $70 at the liquor store to get through what you dealt with in that few days.
Right, right. Or you're just, you're exhausted all the time.
Yeah,
Like, is $70 worth sleeping 6 hours a night
right.
or whatever?
No, it's a real issue.
Um, or, not being able to watch a movie or read anything, or, it's I think if you're there's
Yeah,
definitely a crossover point on whatever graph you would make for that, of the incentive versus the sort of cost of opportunity cost of it. So
right, right. No, that is. I almost said that's. I wasn't under the impression that's quite what opportunity cost meant, but it absolutely is. Insofar as okay, well, while I'm doing this, I cannot be doing that. While I'm
yeah, I mean,
fucking around on
opportunity cost.
DoorDash to make $14, I'm not enjoying myself with the night like I otherwise would be.
Yes,
And no,
that's
100%. I
that's
couldn't agree more.
that's one opportunity cost is really any um, trade-off that you make,
Exactly.
whether it's monetary or time, or
Or any other
like I
resource
remember the
factor.
yeah, I remember the example I read in my econ textbook in college was, even if something is free, there's the opportunity cost of the time you're expending on that. It
Yeah.
could have been devoted to something else.
Yes. Easy as.
So I think the opportunity cost via the monetary benefit of it isn't necessarily uh, on the right side of things. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we get back to like the frustrated high school nerds topic, if you want to talk about the stigma, or not even stigma necessarily, but like almost like the opposite of a stigma, the word escapes me, around something that needs to die in a fire tomorrow. It's the or what if I guess we could just say what people should be maybe a little more um apprised of, is that they're this whole from what there's a long-standing historical precedent that outside of really anything else, that a great many people, if not at one point all of us, largely agreed that there was a little more to this whole life thing than chasing some money, outside of making your about outside of your basic needs, and then some here. I mean, if you're outdoor dashing away all fucking night, like this is going to, you've more or less already said this is going to, this bill is going to come due in other ways, in terms of, we said, going weeks and months at a time without meaningfully enjoying yourself, or as it, God forbid, any level of health issues. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I mean, me and Tom have had this conversation as well, upwards of a year ago now. Maybe it was like two or more, actually, as insofar as as differently as it may look, if the the algorithm is in a good mood about it and shows you the particular combination of Facebook or Instagram reels, the the side hustle culture is definitely not what it was, neck deep in COVID, in terms
Yeah.
of all these guys who think they're Warren Buffett, or getting 8 side businesses off the ground at once, and don't realize that a fraction of a percent of those people actually end up in any sort of decent spot. But the context was that me and Tom were saying, like, yeah, I knew a bunch of people. This is him talking, me paraphrasing
Yeah.
him as best I can. He's like, I knew a bunch of people trying to get all kinds of different stuff like that going. Is it like 2020, 2021, maybe a little ways into 22? And he told me, he's like, yeah, you are basically the only one still at it in any meaningful way, even if just like a partial, it's like I call what I, all this, collectively, all the shit that I get up to, hobbies that pretend they're side businesses. That's actually exactly
Right.
what I said to my colleague when she asked if we have second jobs. Um, and like, yeah, that's just, I said, if we talk about something that needs to go away, that shit thankfully kind of already has. I mean, not that I think there's really anything bad that comes of encouraging folks to explore a life path involving a modicum of entrepreneurship on varying levels.
Well,
There
I
isn't,
think
but
I think some of that stuff though is predatory in of
yeah.
its own right, where
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
subscribe to my Patreon for $15 a month and I'll give you life tips, just shit like that. Um,
Did I ever
where
show you? Did I ever tell you about that one Tim Dillon rant about? It was supposedly a true story about someone he knew, uh, runs a Patreon or equivalent service, whatever the fuck it was. Definitely wasn't like an OnlyFans. This was pre-COVID, pre all before all that became
yeah, yeah.
more fashionable. And I don't think you can run a safe for work one of those. Anyway, this is some woman he knew or knew of, that ran some sort of like life advice Patreon. Exactly what you're talking about. He knew for a fact that she was mired in debt and on the verge of being evicted. And
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
telling people what they should do about their relationships. And like, as I think the point you're getting to making is you'd be amazed how many of these people exist.
Well, and it just that they're not necessarily qualified to make the advice, give advice,
Right, back to
or
the finance
the
or
ad-
the side hustle
the
bros,
ad-
or
yeah, or the advice that they're giving is just so skewed
right. It
by their
makes
own
sense when you're
experiences.
cranked out of your mind at 4 a.m. working third shift at the gas station, which are obviously no small amount of their audience.
Right. Or it's just, I think there's the confirmation bias with a lot of these guys of like, well, all you got to do is work hard and,
Right.
you got to
We've
take
solved the mystery.
risks
Yeah, we've solved
and,
the other mystery. Yeah.
whatever cliche epithet they've got or axiom they have to tell you that happened to work for them
Right.
because of, 30 other extenuating circumstances
Mm-hmm.
and criteria that were met that allowed, their particular hard work or timing or whatever to work. But that a lot of those people treat their advice as almost universal.
Right.
Um, and I think that's kind of that's
The
one of those
crux of the
things
issue.
where
Yeah.
it's yes, it's there's no harm in fostering an entrepreneurial element for um, a certain sector of the population
Hmm.
who's predisposed to that. But I think also there's kind of this unreasonable projection that like owning your own business or um, doing this sort of independent consultant garbage or whatever you want to call it is somehow like this easy and simple path to uh, financial independence, and it's just not. Um,
The case in the slightest.
well, and I think a lot of the stuff too is, there's a projection of a particular image that isn't necessarily accurate, like you
Hmm.
said, with that the lady who was was giving out life advice and just didn't have any particular ability to maintain her own um, basic needs. But even more subtle than that,
Hmm.
of you see a guy on uh, Instagram or Facebook or whatever, um, brain killing uh, time waster. You feel like
Of choice. Yeah.
I don't mean that uh, uh, snidely. I do the same thing, but um,
Oh yeah, we've all
you
got
see,
them. It's not a
you,
personal
s-
jab. Yeah.
yeah,
Continue. Continue.
yeah, you see these guys with, they've got a turtleneck and a suit jacket and some vaguely
Maybe not a
South.
Lexus, but it's like an $87,000 Honda. People forget those days.
Yeah, or it's, and you can see palm trees in the background, and it's a, kind of a vaguely South Florida vibe. Um, and let's, they've got a, I don't know, a Corvette Stingray or something that they're standing from, and there's this whole screed in the, their post about hustling, and you've got to make your own, uh, got to make your own
Path. You're all
opportunities
right. Yep. Your
and all that
opportunities.
stuff, and you know what they're not telling you is
Ain't nothing in this
the
world for free. But my CIA goon father, who retired at 48 from doing God knows what, as a multimillionaire, bankrolled my entire existence until I was 36.
well, not even that, but I mean that's certainly a likely backstory as well. But like the if they were being truthful, the Camaro Stingray is rented. The the suit jacket is from whoever is sponsoring that particular post, um,
Or rented
and
as well. That's absolutely a thing.
yeah, or rented, and it's just it's they're projecting this image of success that they're giving you these vague platitudes or advice and allowing you to make the assumption that this has led to the success alluded to in that picture.
Yeah, and it's a real issue.
But
I mean, I don't like I said, I don't think they're really quite as able to sell the amount of snake oil they used to. But you still have people who really don't get this. And just from like a business standpoint, more generally, I've talked about this with friends and relatives. It comes to you know local restaurants opening and other types of businesses where anyone actually knows who the owner might be. You would be floored to start doing like a modicum of homework and I invite our audience to do some homework along these lines if they're that curious just about who's opening or more recently or even for a while has been running what in their local area. I mean, you guys do not understand. I mean, the restaurant business, especially, not that any particular industry I would call, not tough right now, or most other times. Um, you would be amazed how many of these people's first step in their business plan is to be a bored retired millionaire or have a marginally lucrative 9 to 5, usually like mid-tier tech bro shit, 70, 80, 90 grand a year. They live somewhere, their property taxes are $870, that they continue to work while they get this business off the ground, and oftentimes quite a while after. Some of them bring on, a couple part-time employees just so they have most weekends to themselves, but like, yeah, this idea you open a place up and become take out a loan for X amount of assets, and and that gets you off the ground, and you just kind of do your thing, and if you adhere to some basic good business practices, and treat your customers right and market yourself properly, all those things important. But like these bootstrap stories of coming from nothing like that are just not happening anymore. I mean, hell, if outside of anything else, I know multiple people who either have like relatives involved in like the loan processing corner
Yeah,
of the banking
yeah,
world, and even know some folks who have looked at trying to get some kind of operations off the ground. It is nothing short of laughable what some of the policies are with regard to a lot of that shit right now. One buddy of mine in the game store retail scene, I think if I understood him correctly, he basically said that the amount of required collateral for a business loan was like the amount of, it was like robbing Peter. From what little I was able to understand, it was like robbing Peter to pay Paul shit.
yeah.
So I said they wanted this X collateral, and you got almost the same amount in Y for the loan. So again, my main sort of gripe is if anyone truly believes there are that many of these freaking bootstraps guys who started, built empires from like lemonade stand level shit in anything less than decades, um, the precedent for it is really just not there. Or should I say evidence
Yeah,
to support that in any
you can
degree.
always find circumstantial evidence to prove a point, but
Sure.
you know, I don't know. You've been playing anything good?
Yes, actually, we'll circle right back to that. A game I've said they should make for 10 years and have largely envisioned in my head in something remarkably similar to the form that it took, and is otherwise a blast. I began playing with a good buddy of mine last week. Um, Back in December, Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader came out, and it goes on sale basically every month at this point. And we snagged it and started to play through, and holy fucking shit! I mean, if you like any sort of grid-based, real lore-heavy RPG sort of stuff, where your Icewind Dales, your Baldur's Gate, your even like the older Fallout's or even newer Wasteland games, um, yeah, this is that but 40K and in all the best ways. We were working on it the other night. We really like the co-op aspect. So a party maxes out at 6 characters. Pretty typical stuff for a game like this. That is also the player cap for co-op. So you can invite one friend, and you guys
Oh,
can
that's
each run.
cool.
You guys can each run. The host just allocates characters, so you can each run 3, or one can run 2, and one can run 4. Um, or 4 guys can jump in, and 2 can run 2, and 2 can run 1. However the fuck you want to allocate it. But yeah, the
Yeah,
cap
yeah.
is the amount of the player cap is the character party cap. Um,
That's cool.
and the question becomes, what do you if you have a full house early game? What do you do? Because at a certain point, there's really just a couple characters, because it's the rogue trader is the basically represented as the host's character. So that's how they get around. Like, okay, I originally thought they might have ported in like each character as you go, and it was just sort of like hey, here's guest starring this week the 5 other rogue trader characters. But no, it's like the other players control some number of the party, the companions,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's obviously just how it works during the encounters themselves. And then for the when you're back on the ship and managing everything, just the everyone is observing, and the host player is controlling the rogue trader, who's the only character on screen moving around. So no, that's really kind of cool, in that you can folks can work on housekeeping on their character sheets or inventory or do whatever they have to do while the
Oh,
RT
that's
is
cool.
talking to NPCs or whoever else. Uh, yeah, surprisingly good voice acting. They kind of dip in and out of what lines actually are voiced, um, which was fine. But yeah, the combat's a lot of fun. It's probably one of the more interesting approaches in terms like it's not fully classless, but you don't just like, oh, I'm the warrior, I'm the mage. So you have a bunch of different things, all the way from your origin story, what type of planet you were born on, your character was born on, to their past career before becoming a rogue trader or one of his or her known associates, to your archetype, which is the closest portion to like a class proper. There's like four of them, but different things. It could be like warriors aren't necessarily all ranged or melee. Operatives aren't necessarily just psychers and shit. But that's again, those are some of the preset characters you get. So I get through all of those different combinations. Basically each choice of those or each of those choices get you a few different sort of abilities. So naturally, there's different ways to build all kinds of fun like synergy bombs, but there's a lot of variety too, even with the sort of pre-made characters. And yeah, again, we're only a few hours in, but so far so good. Every bit of or worth every bit of the barely $30 the deluxe edition was on sale. I think.
Oh, that's
With
cool. That's
or no, I think we
pretty
loaded up
reasonable.
on the DLC and shit. I mean, one of them's literally just like an alternate ship skin for like $3, so you can safely assume that doesn't exist. And the other
Yeah.
was the deluxe edition, so that's your digital art book, your soundtrack, I think a couple high res wallpapers, and I think a couple other goodies too.
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe a different throne skin when you're on the ship. Your character actually sits on a throne in the bridge, and there's different things to you can address the main members of the crew and different address different issues. I'm reminded of Dragon Age Inquisition actually in that regard. But anyway, it was a really fun little game. Actually, we might even play a little bit tonight. But
Nice.
yeah,
Oh,
highly
that's good.
recommend. It's a few bucks right now. It's at a point where it goes on sale, as I said, like every month. But yeah, what else have I been playing lately? I saw there was another No Man's Sky patch. I should probably get back into that after close to 5 years. What else? What else? What else? I think a new Deep Rock Galactic season is starting. I've been meaning to get back into that because you can't ever really truly leave, right? And me and Tom were just talking about Project Zomboid, which I myself have never played, but he said it's definitely
Oh
one of the
yeah.
better zombie games out there.
I had seen that as well. It looked interesting.
Yeah, because we had discussed how we somehow got onto like the topic of what is it? 28 days later is like impossible to watch right now. You got to buy a DVD. Not that the DVDs or the Blu-rays are going up very much, but it's not on any streaming service legally anywhere right now. So then got to talking. Wow, there's really not many games with that sort of vibe. We got the running zombies, but not like Left 4 Dead, where everyone has 600 rounds of ammunition, and unless you're
Yeah,
playing on
yeah.
exceedingly hard, and can shove like 25 zombies away with a rifle butt, and unless you're playing really really high difficulty, you're hardly fragile as a character. Which I mean, that kind of shit's fun to a point, but like, yeah, I want to be sprinting away from a horde of zombies and have like 5 rounds in an FAL, and
Right.
running and have to jump from building to building to get away. So dude, I'm like, yeah, we really don't have a ton of that. And he said Project Zomboid in a lot of ways got close in that, like, okay, yeah, er, they're just stereotypical, shambler zombies, so they're not fast. But I mean, if you're dealing with more than a couple at a time, it is like a serious problem, even for a decent sized crew. So I mean,
Yeah.
sort of bunkering, unlike a lot of zombie media, so it's kind of bunkering up in one place definitely isn't the move for long term survival.
Hmm.
Um, and he said, yeah, vehicles are a thing, but good luck finding gas. Even if you do, they actually take a shit ton of damage if you hit a zombie with them. Like, wow,
Oh,
that's
that's cool.
really interesting. And yeah, see, overall, he said it's still played something fierce and on sale, probably even every day, like $6 with all, if there's even any DLC, $6 with everything. Real cheap game right now. and
Yeah, I did see
yeah, check it
it
out.
was pretty inexpensive, which is nice.
Mhm. Yeah, after I mean, I literally remember folks talking about it. Not even towards the end of college, like midway through. So 2014, 15, it had to have come out, if not earlier. So yeah, I know it's been out for a minute, and yeah, apparently it's still pretty
Hmm.
decently well played, and it's definitely one of the better of the you know tidal wave of zombie survival games of around about that time period. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but it was pretty early on in that whole situation that I just tuned out the genre altogether, and apparently I missed a
yeah,
few things, and I'll take ownership of that. But
yeah. I think I I think the only one I kind of worked into on that was 7 Days to Die.
oh yeah, okay,
So, but yeah, I mean, there's it's it's no different than any other of those kind of like extraction shooters are sort of a thing right now, and survival zombie games were kind of a thing a couple years ago,
yeah.
and
Every few
it's
years
just
you do have that one genre. There was a period where tactics games were all the rage, probably about 7, 8 years ago.
yeah,
You had them for every conceivable genre. I mean, years and years ago, there was an MMO for everything.
yes,
It's interesting.
yep. Same thing happens with movies and stuff.
Oh yeah,
It's just
yeah,
how it goes.
that do be how it is. All right. Anything else we should touch on here? We've probably done a little over an hour now. I can look and see exactly what we've done. Hour two. Want to call it there?
Perfect. Yeah, we'll call it there for
All
now.
right. This
It was
actually
good to
makes it
talk.
manageable to edit, and therefore, unlike the other episode, I can have it perhaps uploaded in the next 2 days. But I guess nothing bad comes of building up a few and then unleashing, maybe even three, four, five all at once.
Oh man,
Especially
now that's
that's I
pretty
guess how the real podcasters do it. I mean, we just upload to a YouTube channel and we'll build our empire from there. But yeah, alrighty. Well, I guess this is
all
another
right.
episode of RTS. I guess maybe some of our cohorts will eventually join us otherwise or for episodes future. But until then, stay tuned for the next time we have movie or other media reviews to torture you about, and if it helped for any length of time. And this is a new phrase I'm positive that I didn't coin, but I'm like starting to use it, and I don't know of anyone else who is yet. If it helped you, our audience, detox from this whole life thing, if only for a little while, I think we've achieved our objective, and we'll continue to work towards continuing to achieve that objective, I should say. All right,
All right.
all right. Till next time.
Later.
Peace.